Superman, you don't love me. You only think you do. It's pity you feel for me. Superman's telepathic mermaid ex-girlfriend, Lori Lemaris. The time is now. She's a fascinating character and was an extremely important and stable part of Superman lore until she just wasn't. There was a period where Lori was known as one of the great loves of Superman's life, and Clark Kent's, because she knew who he was. But then she ended up kind of fading away. What happened? What were her best eras? Where has she ended up? Did you recognize her on Young Justice, the animated series, not the 90s comic? Is there a place for her in modern lore? Time of recording, we're going to take a look at the evolution of Lori Lemaris and ponder. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and let's take a trip under the sea and back to the Silver Age. Lori Lemaris is one of the many people rocking the LL initials in Superman's life, and she first debuted in Superman 129 in 1959, created by Bill Finger and Wayne Boring. She is introduced in the story The Girl in Superman's Past, in a tale that throws the entire reasoning as to why Clark won't marry Lois out the window a little bit. At least it dangles it over the edge, Batman style. Everyone believes that Lois Lane is and always was Superman's secret love, and that Superman can't marry Lois because his crime-fighting career might endanger his future wife. But did you know that long ago, the Man of Steel was ready to forsake his Superman career in order to gain the love of a beautiful and mysterious girl? Clark has it bad for Lori. While at a football match, which he took Lois to at his old alma mater, a blanket over her legs makes him fall into a deep flashback about his time with Lori Lemaris, who he met when her wheelchair was speeding out of control down a hill. He had to covertly use his powers to stop it. He's quite taken with her, and the fact that she's in a wheelchair, and admires her in a very 1959 way.
She's a paralysis victim, but this courageous girl hasn't let it stop her from getting an education.
When he tries to conjure an excuse for why her chair is now broken, she comes up with one for him, and in such a way that it feels like she already knows his secret. He's extra smitten when he learns that her name has 2 L's, his kink. He next sees her in an aquarium when a boiler explodes. Everything is flooded, but when he goes to try and get her, he sees her seemingly communicating with an octopus who then lets her go. She just jokes it off. Octopuses always just be releasing people. That blanket around her legs, in quotes, must be super glued on because nothing moves it. The two start dating, and as their courtship goes on, Clark gets more and more smitten and is very serious. He often has these elaborate fantasies about showing off for her with his powers.
In our music class, I daydreamed of flying a great orchestra around the world so all would hear a love song I'd write for her.
I see that Clark went to the Scott Pilgrim School of Love Songs based on those lyrics.
Lori, Lori is my love.
I met a girl, Lori was her name. No, that's Donna. We can't take that song away from Donna. Lori is an exchange student and she speaks with a slight accent, something that will matter later. However, one day Clark's happiness is shattered because Lori comes up and says that it's time for her to go. She has to return home. Clark decides he will give up being Superman. He's still on that idea that a criminal would seek to harm him through his wife, but he decides he'll give it all up for her. He won't be Superman. He would rather be with her. So he proposes to her and tells her his secret at the same time. But she says she already knows and she can't marry him. Although I love you, I can never marry you.
But if it's because of your legs, that doesn't matter to me.
Okay, good. Stop there. Just stop talking.
After all, I'm Superman. I'll search the universe for a cure that can make you walk again.
That does not win her over. And later, when he's low-key following her, he hears her making a transmission to someone, and he wonders, is she a spy? She does have a slight accent.
I love Lori, but I love my country too.
So he searches her room and discovers a giant water tank. A dam exploding and Lori offering to help allows him to confirm that she is a mermaid, and she helps him save people and secure the dam. And later she tells him everything, how she can communicate with animals as well, how she's telepathic, that's how she knew that he was Clark Kent and Superman. She's pretty liberal about the mind reading. It's just something she does very casually in the beginning. The history of her in Atlantis goes thusly. The city was sinking, so they constructed a dome around it, and one day a scientist found a way to transform them into a race of mer people, allowing them to leave the dome. These details will later be expanded upon. You'll see the city split off, and hers will be specifically identified as Tritonus. Also, her ancestor will be made the one to discover the formula that will transform them. Also, will establish the different politics of the different regions. Aquaman enters the Silver Age around this point in 1959. The new version would have significant expansion upon his backstory, such as the fact he was Arthur Curry. So while it is amusing to make jokes about Aquaman not showing up for things, and I will continue to do so, there is an actual reason for it. Every century, someone is chosen to go and check on surface life, and this century it was Lori. But the time has come for her to return home. home. They kiss farewell under the sea in a panel that will become iconic for this couple. It will be reused often. And then Lori and her waterproof blouse depart. But Lori would find herself reappearing quite quickly. However, the tale of her return would see her being taken off the playing field as a viable love interest for Clark. Because as she stood, figuratively speaking, she was very much a strong contender alongside Lana and Lois. And some had taken to her and were asking about her in the letters column. Dear editor, of all the stories you've published, The Girl in Superman's Past remains my favorite. I've never forgotten Lori Lemaris, the mermaid. Will we ever meet her again? Oh, also, back in the day, for those of you who have noticed the knees on the mermaids and for whom it bothers you, people were writing in about that back in the day too. Dear editor, in the story The Girl in Superman's Past, the girl known as Lori always had a blanket over her lap to conceal the fact that she was a mermaid. Yet, whenever your artist showed her sitting in a wheelchair, he deceptively showed the form of human knees under her blanket. Isn't this a boo-boo? Get ready for sass. We prefer to call it artistic license. Lori would find herself returning in Superman 135. This in 1960, in Superman's mermaid sweetheart, same creative team, go! Clark is driving down the pier when he overhears some fishermen talking about mermaids. This launches him into a detailed flashback about his time with Lori. The lead fisherman in this group, Hans, is angry because he claims he's been losing catches for years because of this mysterious mermaid. She's his white whale. Look, he even has a peg leg. Are you Captain Hook? Did she take your leg, Hans? The sea witch's eyes be blue as the sea. Her hair soft and shiny. She's too beautiful to be human, yar. He's a pirate now. I don't know.
The description fits Lori perfectly.
So Clark goes out to stand on a rock in that sea at night and just thinks aggressively at Lori. He's begging her to come to him. And she does, and it's all a very romance movie meetup.
Lori, I'd given up all hopes of ever seeing you again, but I've never forgotten you.
I know, many times in Far Off Atlantis when I felt alone and blue, I read your thoughts. I can read them now. May I answer them? Yes, you may kiss me. Superman proposes to her again, just instantly, but she says no, they're not meant to be, but he asks her on a date just for old time's sake. She agrees, and it is not the best date. It starts off okay, but it ends up with her crying because he takes her out to this restaurant and she sees the dancers, and it just makes her think about the fact that on the surface, they really can't have the type of relationship that she wants them to have. But Superman says he'll quit. He'll stop being Superman for her. He will live under the water. He can never drown. Good information to have. But she says she has to ask the elders of Atlantis, whether they want Superman there. They tell her yes. But when she comes back to tell him, riding a dolphin for some reason, Hans is there, and he says he'll kill her dolphin, then she'll know his pain. But she dives in front, getting grievously injured by his harpoon. I didn't mean to harm her. You've got to believe me, Superman. Hans was never seen again. I'm kidding, but Superman does say that if Lori dies, there's no place in the universe that Hans will be able to hide. Secret parallel universe injustice, go. The Atlanteans say they have no one who can help her, but remember, Superman said he would scour the universe, and he does. He just goes across the universe looking for anyone, and he finally finds a planet full of mer people. And there's a doctor on there called Renal, and he's like, come back and cure my lady mermaid friend. Renal comes back with him and works with her for days until she's saved. And Superman is overjoyed. Now they can get married. He's ready to let the people of the surface world die, but it's not to be. Lori has fallen in love with Renal.
It isn't fair. I searched the universe to save that woman.
That woman? Uh-oh. And then Lori was never seen again.
What right has she to love someone else after what we've meant to each other?
She's telepathic. She can hear you, Clark. Superman, you don't love me. You only think you do. Well, there's no need to gaslight him, Lori. That's not nice either. It's pity you feel for me. I mean, maybe, but you could also say that you just love Renal and his knees that are clearly hidden inside his fin. Why does he have knees? Now please, let me kiss you goodbye.
Was it pity or love? I'll never know.
Wow, she messed with his head good. You could make an argument for the pity angle because he did seem to kind of get off on her being in the wheelchair, but he did still feel the same way about her after he found out she was a mermaid. So maybe it might have started off that way, potentially, but it evolved. Or maybe he just liked her. The story doesn't address the fact that it also seems that Lori is not comfortable with the idea that Clark is not a merman. But like Clark said, we'll never know. And wow, Renal, only there for a few days and she's smitten. The man does good work. So Clark returns to his life once more sans Lori. From this point on, Lori does not vanish, quite the opposite. She becomes a recurring supporting character across multiple titles. Superman, Action Comics, Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane, Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen, and she is utilized as more than just a person that Clark is pining for, though those stories do happen. There was a period where she was attempting to get him to propose to Lois Lane by very aggressively using her telepathic abilities to try to influence him. She's beautiful and so helpless. Take Lois into your arms, Superman, and kiss her. Kiss her now. Kiss her. Kiss her.
Some unknown force is urging me to kiss Lois. So I will.
He does on the forehead though, even with all this aggressive telepathic pressuring. He's like, nope, not on the lips. Very scary, Lori, terrifying. He does eventually figure out that it is Lori.
Lori, you meant well, but please do me a super favor, will you? In the future, allow me to pick out my own wife.
I promise. That is the face of a liar. However, as time went on, Lori would become a key support in other types of plots. Action plots, mystery plots, particularly in Action Comics, wherein she would become a slight mentor figure to Supergirl, and also a bit of a chaperone, because Kara was having a bit of a parallel romance with Jiro, the mer boy, who everybody knew she had a crush on because they're all telepathic down there. It was very embarrassing for her. Lori would also, of course, show up if Superman was sick or dying as someone who cared about him, or there was one plot where a woman was kidnapping all the important loves of Superman's life because she was bitter that he didn't love her even though her initials were also LL and Lori was one of the people she kidnapped. Lori would also end up featuring in adventures where via her own ingenuity she would save herself or Clark. A noteworthy example of her saving herself occurred in Action Comics 475 from 1977, so in the Bronze Age. Lori would once more find herself captured by fishermen. She needs to just stop going certain places. They always catch her. She cannot see nets. With both Aquaman and Superman busy, she has to get out of it herself. She would use her telepathic abilities to prey upon the weakest one's mind, causing them to turn on each other so she could free herself by summoning some of her sea creature friends. Once more an octopus. It's Topo. We'll get back to Topo in a bit. So she ended up being versatile. She could feature in comedic outings like Superman's Pal Jimmy Olsen, where she was one of the people to kiss him when he turned into a werewolf because he needed to kiss a pretty woman, and so she gave him a pity kiss. It didn't work. Or she could be more serious plots like tracking down an escaped supervillain. And via retcon very early into her inception, she would find herself tied even more intricately to Superman's past. In an interesting tale that would say that they met as teenagers. This occurred in the not oft-mentioned Adventure Comics 280 from 1961, where a very different Lori would be presented. While adult Lori was poised, collected, and passionate and determined, teenage Lori was a liar. A liar with a crush on Superboy. She would say that she knew him, and eventually she would sneak up to the surface even though it wasn't permitted to see him. This is also the story that canonizes that Lori and Aquaman are two different types of Atlantean. Lori here just can't stop lying to Clark. She fakes attacks that he'll have to come and save her. She says that she's 2,000 years old, cuz he's clever enough to figure out she's lying to him, and so when he promises her that he'll get her some legs, he actually rigs a machine to fix her personality and stop her lying. Scary. They need to stop messing with each other's minds. Stop it. However, when her father catches wind of this, that she left, not the personality shift, he's fine with that, he ends up hypnotizing both of them so that they forget the encounter, as he's afraid that Superboy will accidentally reveal the location of Atlantis. While a quick and odd tale that is structured in such a way that it can be ignored, which it often was, it did introduce the concept of Lori and Clark meeting even younger, of him having an encounter with someone as different as he was, someone who on his world too was an outsider. It was a concept that some would be fond of. Indeed, for some, that was part of the appeal of Superman and Lori, that they had this understanding of what it meant to be outsiders and how one had to change oneself to operate in the world. In DC Comics Presents number 5 from 1978, so firm Bronze Age, she would be involved in a tale of undersea political intrigue between the Atlantean cities of Tritonus and Poseidonus, positioning her as an integral figure in the action, as well as highlighting her more mature relationship with Superman and her solid relationship with husband Renal. Renal and Superman had by this point also come to be friendly themselves. Renal viewed Superman as a friend. Renal is going to be shafted so hard in future adaptations. Lori, while not necessarily a political entity, was a respected citizen of Tritonus, and the seeds were there that would act as one part of laying the groundwork of her portrayal when she made the move to adaptation in animated form. So through the ages leading up to Crisis, Lori was very well established. She was one of the great loves of Superman's life, who had things been different he would have been with. She was a stable part of his lore, someone who could be conjured for a variety of plots. Since she was married and the Comics Code didn't like hints of impropriety, despite how zany some of the romance plots could get, there had to be other things for Lori to do than just be someone that Superman pined over. So her other traits were drawn to the fore. She was a loyal, good friend, intelligent, shown to be helping her city grow, helping in her husband's research, brave, slightly dangerous, definitely willing to put Atlantis first, and someone who did not have strong telepathic ethics. Her feeling of importance would be aided by the fact that over the years her stories would often be reprinted in various giant-sized books. And by the time Crisis on Infinite Earths arrived in 1985, this was the DC line-wide event that would collapse the multiverse into one universe, she was shown in this to be an active participant trying to save the multiverse and Atlantis. Like the vast majority of characters, she was killed, but she would not be long gone. One of of the goals of Crisis on Infinite Earths was to streamline the DC universe. And when that came to Superman, it came in the form of stripping him back, taking all of his lore back to basics and making him actually the last Kryptonian. For a time. However, John Byrne would bring Lori into the then modern era in 1987 in Superman number 12 in the tale Love Lost. In many ways, the story is a beat-for-beat retelling of Superman 129, only more fleshed out with a writing style that suits the sensibilities of the time. There's just one thing.
She's dead, Jim.
The framing device of this story is Superman and Renal meeting to commemorate her death. Why is she dead? I guess it's more dramatic that way. Look, Lori still has her magic blanket. The thing is, this story is really well written. One can feel the love that Clark had for Lori, and it even takes and modifies many of the lines from the classic Lori tales.
I look into eyes as deep and mysterious as the sea, and for the first time in my life, I fell in love.
Because we already see Renal here, the story also retells issue 135, with Hans in an even more villainous role this time. This time Hans just wants to murder her so that he can sell her corpse to a circus. Calm down, 80s Hans. Superman now seeks aid in Tritonus, and Renal is a citizen there, so he's no longer an alien merman. Which makes sense, but it's less dramatic than Clark having to scour the universe. It's a solid change, it makes sense. Although I am tickled by the idea of alien mer-people. Also in this story, Lori's recovery takes months, so she spends much more time with Renal before falling for him. But Lori still pulls the whole "you never loved me, you loved the idea of me, you pitied me," and then adds on "you love Lois," which is very in keeping with her Silver Age telepathy ethics. Even if he did love Lois, there's something very uncouth about digging around in his mind and telling him about thoughts that he might not even have had time to process himself, potentially recontextualizing them by framing them the way that she wants for him. They recreate the kiss panel in Back to the Present where she's dead. The death here very much feels like either an attempt at clearing things up so they're not complicated, or mining for some easy pathos. There's no real reason for her to be dead and not just an ex. This might be meant to be a meta reference because this issue is dedicated to Wayne Boring, who is one of Lori Lemaris' co-creators who had died that year. That takes her off the board as a support, and she was a good one. At the time, she would still have been a fondly remembered character, so she would not stay dead. In Superman 63 in 1992, it would be revealed that she was not dead, that she had instead told Renal to tell Clark she was dead. This feels very much like a callback to the 60s where she was trying to get his life to go certain ways. It's meant to be this bittersweet moment where she's giving up their friendship and their relationship so that he can have a happy life because she knows how much he passionately loves her. But then the story for some reason decides to add the idea that she doesn't love Renal. Someone honked at that. There were like honks for Renal. Renal is also telepathic, so he would know this unless she's constantly putting effort into not thinking about that fact or blocking it from him somehow. And so it would stay for a time. Lori would not find herself an active part of Superman lore again until 1996, wherein she would reappear with legs. She first shows up at the end of Superman 109, but her big return plot is handled in Adventures of Superman number 532. At the time there were 4 titles, sometimes 5, but the 4 were consistently feeding into each other. These were Superman titles. So you would have plots starting in one and then finishing in another, the hopes being that you would pick them all up so that you could cobble together everything that was going on. It wouldn't always be big plots, but if you were only collecting one, there would be threads that would just kind of drop off and go nowhere because it finished somewhere else. It makes backtracking a special kind of difficult. Well, not really, but it makes it take longer. It can make it a bit more tedious because you gotta make sure you're reading them in the right order. You need to get one of those reading order flowcharts going. Clark is thrilled to see Lori alive and with legs. Since he's engaged to Lois, he takes Lori to her apartment. Lois is not thrilled. Lori in this tale is treated very much as Clark's bombshell ex, and there is much mermaid thirst. Lori has come to the surface because Renal is about to be thrown out as a character. Gone the understanding scientist and kind husband. Enter Renal the madman. Renal found a magic staff that allowed him to tap into some kind of eldritch magic. It's driven him mad with its Lovecraftian siren song. Renal zapped Lori with his staff by accident when they were trying to subdue him. This was after they found him conducting strange experiments. This zap seems to be why she has legs. So how it works is it's very Splash style. When she's wet, she has fins. When she's dry, she's got legs. She comes to the surface, she sues Luca. Renal was forever changed, and now the staff has been stolen. There's an odd panel here where Lois is surprised Lori knows Clark is Superman, but why else would a mermaid be there? Did she just think that Clark was just dating some random mermaid? Lori is here in this plot mostly as part of padding. They need to install roadblocks and Lois and Clark drama because they were stalling the wedding in the comics that could line up with the timing for the then running TV series Lois and Clark. Renal has transformed himself into more sea serpent than merman. He's gone full cartoon villain. The idea of him either going mad because he knew that Lori didn't love him, or perhaps she's able to call back to him because of their love, neither of those are used. He's just there to go full mwahaha and he's turned to stone. Bye, Renal. This leaves Lori to hang around. Up until the wedding, Lori is featured as a support for this time period. through 1996. She lives with Lois, and the stories can't decide whether she's there to drive a wedge into Lois and Clark's relationship purposely or by accident. Despite the fact that there were Superman summits to try and keep all these Superman plots kind of in line with each other, these comics were written by different people, so there are different tones. In some, she's doling out advice to Superman on his relationship with Lois. In others, she's showing up to his work, asking him out, pining aggressively. It does feel like she's just hanging around hoping for a bit, because it never firmly establishes why she doesn't return to Tritonus. So you're just left to infer, and really the only reason is that she's hanging around hoping for Clark and his ponytail. It was a nice ponytail. She starts taking art history classes and gets embroiled in this art theft plot, where she's selling artifacts from sunken ships that she knows the whereabouts of for money, and Jimmy assumes she's some kind of black market art thief and runs the story before confirming his sources. This plot is an interesting one for Lori, even if it does paint her in an Ariel-esque what is this man's world framework, but it never really goes anywhere. She ends up being a bridesmaid at their wedding and then vanishes for a bit. She does not become a core respected support for Superman the same way she did in the Silver Age. Despite the off-malign moors of the period, in many ways Lori was treated more respectfully in past iterations, more fleshed out and more to do. Here Lori feels as though she's just hanging around waiting, and her personality is vague and undefined, eventually settling on wise confidant because of her telepathy. Also hot chick, which while she also was in the 60s, it was more balanced with some of her other traits, and they couldn't go as hard on the leering. There's some intense leering in some of these panels. The 90s was a great time if you liked legs. Actually, the 90s was a great time if you just liked extraness. She starts off the post-crisis era better than she finishes it. 2007 sees a Superman Confidential plotline, Superman Confidential being a series focused on untold tales from Superman's past, where she's finding artifacts from museums when she finds a necklace that grants your deepest desire and it possesses her. Her deepest desire is apparently to rule with Clark by her side. Metropolis is sunk in this, so we get Merman, Jimmy, and Lex, and then Mermaid Lois. And Clark is kept under Lori's thrall. She's keeping him telepathically suppressed at all times. She's blocking his memories of Lois and his life. This comic features Lex forcibly making out with Lois and then pretending to snap her neck. What a time. Instead of placing Lori and Clark in the position of past serious love as they were in the start of post-crisis, in a reversal, Lori is presented as dangerously hung up on Clark. I guess we'll just blame it on Superboy Prime punching that wall. So many things subtly changed, just a good wall punch. Lori was an infinite crisis, it tracks. Lori would later be seen having returned to Tritonus and feature his background in some JLA plots, like the Obsidian Age, where she is meant to be a character one recognizes in Atlantis. She is also part of the Justice League of Atlantis. This was during a storyline where the Justice League had forgotten itself, so the heroes instead formed their own Justice League, out of vestiges of memories that they were at some point in a league of some kind. But Lori would slowly fade, and she would not be a character who was brought back into the fold for the New 52. And Rebirth would just feature her briefly in flashback panels here and there. You can see her briefly in Lois Lane number 10, so you know that at some point she existed, but she doesn't really play an active role in anything. Time of recording. Despite having been well established for significant periods of Superman's history, Lori has not been overly adapted. She didn't even make it into Smallville, which is surprising because everybody and their brother made it onto Smallville. However, in 2011, she would find herself placed in the world of Young Justice, on a trajectory that would tap into threads seeded decades prior, namely that she didn't have to be tied to Superman at all. Young Justice would situate her firmly in Atlantis, first as a student of Mira's school learning Atlantean sorcery. She's not featured over much at first, so some may not have recognized her. Character designer Jerome Moore was asked to make her distinct, but also make sure she didn't end up looking like Ariel. He did several things. He gave her a more fish-like tail that would cause her to have to swim in a more fish-like manner and less a dolphin manner. Also no knees, huzzah! He would also try and modify her clothing to make it feel more Atlantean and less like she was just wearing American clothes under the water. Lori would also feature in 2 issues of the Young Justice tie-in comic, issues 14 and 15 from the run from 2011, wherein Calder would take the team to officially meet the members of the Conservatory of Sorcery. Shout out to Renal in the back. He's gonna get a plot too, but not a flattering one. Lori does more than be weirded out by Miss Martian thinking she should be flattered that she replicated her tail. She also must defend Topo. That's right, from before. Now he's like an actual character and not an octopus, but he still is. He's an octopus boy. These are the issues that see the rise of the purists. Atlanteans who do not wish to mix with the more fish-like members among them. Renal is actually one of them. For a time. By the end of issue 15, he's not anymore. They've been radicalized by the Ocean Master, who is later defeated, but not for long. Lori is established here as strong-willed, fair-minded, a good fighter, and pragmatic. When the animated series would return from cancellation after years off the air, Lori would feature in season 4, once more as a key part of Atlantis. Now as a general, part of of the talks to determine the shift of power. She is seen as wary of former purists. This Lori sidesteps her past romantic interests and instead is placed in a new position. No longer starting off as a romance-based character at all. Instead starting off as a support for the world of Atlantis and expanding from that point. Showcasing that there is much potential for her in that capacity, and that Atlantis and Aquaman lore often don't get the credit they deserve for being interesting. It's interesting down there. I wanted that trench horror movie by James Wan. Young Justice is ongoing time of recording, so maybe Lori will get some more to do. While Lori might not have set the world on fire in the world of adaptation, she did make more of a splash in the Elseworlds. Lori would start featuring in proto-Elseworlds stories known as imaginary stories all the way back in the 60s. My favorite from that era, of course, is from Superman's Girlfriend Lois Lane, issue 51. This is a story wherein Clark marries each of his core love interests one at a time, and then they each die. So he's a widower 3 times over, and then at the end he discovers that there's a serum that if he could have used it, it would have saved one of them. But which one would he have saved? Dark. Decades later, she would feature in some very different ways. In the first official Elseworlds story, Batman Holy Terror from 1991, yes, Gotham by Gaslight came before, but the Elseworlds label hadn't been created yet, so that was added on retroactively. In Holy Terror, a much more fish-like Lori is seen in the cages of metahumans as Batman explores the depths and horrors hidden beneath the city. Lori Lemaris would also feature prominently in the Tangent universe, but she would bear pretty much no resemblance to her original counterpart. Tangent was a DC imprint that ran from 1996 to 1997 that was helmed by Dan Jurgens and featured an entirely different universe, but the characters used the DC universe's names and other names would be featured therein, items, locations, etc. It was said to be meant to be a bit of an homage to Julius Schwartz and the Silver Age, which saw a reimagining of many DC characters, not by choice, as many Golden Age heroes would be replaced by their Silver Age counterparts. Characters who would bear the same hero name but be different people in the costumes and have different backstories. However, the changes in the Silver Age were nowhere near as stark and at times hard to follow as Tangent, though Tangent did have its fun moments. We did a video on the Tangent Flash, and to date, it's probably one of my favorite voices.
I'm like so busted. Oh, me? My name is Leah Nelson. I'm the Flash. I'm made of light.
Lori first appears here in Metal Men #1 as a reporter working for World's Finest. But in reality, she's one of the women who moonlights as the vigilante, the Joker. It was her, Mary Marvel, and Madame Xanadu. She would be arrested and imprisoned for her vigilante activities, and later she would join the Outsiders and she would become the new Manhunter. During the crossover event of the main universe and the Tangent universe, she would help the main universe heroes fight against her universe's Superman. And she would also feature in the Tangent Convergence comics. She's a cool character, but she is really Lori in name only. The changes have gone so far, there is nothing of the original left. She would be rendered as an evil dark mermaid in the dark multiverse, recruited to be a member of the Unseen, helmed by Paris the Benevolent, gaining his protection since their worlds were dead, but really he just wanted to suck off their life energy. That was the exchange. They were later freed in the Sideways comic and they were sent to Earth Zero to try and live some kind of life. All of the Unseen were meant to be references to Silver Age characters, largely from Superman's supporting cast. However, the biggest, and for some most baffling Elseworlds exploration of Lori is also the most recent time of recording. It comes from 2019 and Superman Year 1 by Frank Miller, with art by John Romita. This story is a reimagining of Superman's youth. Again, it's not as oft retold as Batman's, but starting to get up there. Issue 1 is all Clark and Smallville and Lana, then he ditches her and Smallville for the Navy. Issue 2, after a start of naval training, which we do not need for our purposes, Clark goes for a swim. Adapt. You don't need the air. Let it out. Now breathe the water. It's easy. It's them. It's them. It's the mermaids. They're laughing at him. The angel's name is Lori, and she's teasing him. Catch me if you can, frog boy. She's teasing him. Sin City, underwater, before Clark murders Lori. Clark follows her because he hears her weeping now because a submarine has crashed into her city, so he goes to help. Lori's mind is barking out orders left and right. She's been at this for hours and she's tired. So was she not teasing him? Was she tricking him? Was that all in his head? Can she read his mind and she was trying to lure him there because she knows that he has powers? It will never become clear. He has a few hours, so he helps them fix their city, but he eventually has to go back to the naval base. My hero, no, cried Lori. Don't leave us. Don't leave me. And all the mermaids joined in with songs that had lured sailors through the ages to watery deaths. Stay with us. Sleep with us. Stay with me, called Lori. Sleep with me. Make me your queen. Okay, who put the term mermaid in the hub filter again? Clark has to leave, but Lori thinks that one day he'll return and they will unite the tribes of the sea and she will be his queen. It hasn't gone off the rails yet. Clark gets discharged by the Navy after they don't like how he comports himself on a mission, so he packs his stuff and walks into the ocean. And there's an officer who sees him do it who believes in mermaids, who tells him to say hi to the ladies. And so he returns to Lori. Never stray again, she pleads. Come close, she moans. And then they have off-panel sex. It's Frank Miller, so the world shakes or the seabed shakes, but Smallville did that too. They probably did it because he did it that first time with Wonder Woman in the sky where they have sex and then she says that she's instantly pregnant. Will never not make me chuckle. Lori says it's time for him to meet her father, so he dons his uniform to do so. This panel, he looks like he's high, like she has him under a spell, and there's such loose writing that that could be the intent. Or this may be meant to be some deep, passionate love. Clark is very passive and not overly well defined in this series. There's a line in issue 3 that says that the Earth farted. It doesn't matter, I just wanted to tell you about it. So Clark has to fight his way to her father, Poseidon, in this. And now is where it goes off the rails. Poseidon tries to kill Clark with the Kraken, but it doesn't work, and Clark makes the Kraken sick, so a projectile vomits him out.
Frog legs, she will never be yours. You have no place here. She is my princess and my bride. You will reign by my side. You will take your mother's place in every respect. You will serve me.
No!
You will love me.
No! But Superman can't be defeated. Largely, he just stands there and takes hit after hit after hit. And so Poseidon just leaves. And Clark is deemed to be Lori's king. Is he king of Atlantis now? He might be. He could stay here. He could stay here. He could spend a lifetime here. He could stay here and never leave. Not for his whole life. Yes, you said that. Also, next issue, he's leaving instantly to hang out with Lois. But this is a Frank Miller comic, so really that's just a stopgap to get to Wonder Woman. Lori here is not much of a character. She's more some kind of amalgamation of siren mermaid fantasy. This whole issue, and indeed this series, has a very free-flowing form kind of feeling to it. And something about John Romita's art paired with this style of writing creates a kind of disconnect that makes everything feel aloof. Something about how the dialogue boxes and narration boxes are often interchangeable, and it kind of shifts tenses at points and there's a lot of repetition. It definitely makes Superman feel detached from the happenings. It doesn't really give off the impression that this is a grand love story, but more like it's an underwater fever dream. But perhaps that's the intent. It's different, and if one is digging that looser, more mythological feeling, it may land. So time of recording, that is the life of Lori Lemaris. Were she to return, there are options. Maybe she has time of recording. You could go the full Young Justice route, where it's pure Atlantis and Tritonus, or you could have a fusion of that and her history with Superman. The idea of Superman having a love that could not be, a relationship where their circumstances kept them apart and it has faded into a deep friendship, could be interesting. It could also be interesting to finally fully explore that angle of, was it pity or was it love? You could also explore the idea of Lori as a bridge, someone who has spent time on the surface world and below the sea, which would make her have a valuable perspective and make her someone who could have a unique kinship with Aquaman as well, but from a bit of a different angle. It would be nice in general to see the return of non-superhero supports. Time of recording, there aren't that many. Characters who are there to be called upon by a variety of other more mainstay established characters and who can serve multiple functions, who are important in their own right while not being the main focus. What do you think? Do you think Lori has a place in the post-Dark Crisis era of DC Comics? It's not post yet, but it will be. How would you reintroduce her into the universe? What's your favorite Lori era, if any, or do you think she should stay gone? Are there any Loris I did not highlight that you feel were worth mentioning? Tell me things down below, and while you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking this time out of your day spent discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.